If you are a supply management professional for your company, irrespective of the market and industry in which your company operates, this study will provide a very valuable insight for you that you can incorporate in your strategy when you are puzzled about selecting suppliers for innovation projects. As we know, innovation has its origin in many diverse industries in which one innovation is adopted by a totally different industry. Therefore, a firm's suppliers, they could also vary in their potential in helping a supplier, helping a customer to innovate, because they do have different ties with different industries, with different partners. However, at the same time, a supplier's interorganizational ties could also become channels for leaking competitive information of the customer's new product, thereby potentially undermining the innovation development process of the customer and ultimately leads to failure to capture the maximum market share. Central to this theme is the concept of interorganizational ties of a supplier and the benefit and the risk they provide to a customer's innovation process. The literature on interorganizational ties and supplier ties and the way in which they influence a supplier manager's supplier selection decision is very limited. And they usually just tend to focus on those traditional criteria, which is quality, cost, and delivery, which are okay if we are talking about suppliers of commodities that already exist on the shelf. But in contrast, this study, we could focus on a very novel context where you are selecting supplier for a new product that is to be developed. And we want to examine how information about supplier ties affect the purchasing manager's perception about the supplier's potential to help the customer create novel products and at the same time protect the customer's proprietary information. And we also want to study how the manager trade-off between innovation novelty and the information protection when they're making the final selection decisions. The hypotheses are developed using signaling theory, which is widely used to study about how one party uses information about the other party to detect their true ability. And also we test the hypothesis using two complementary behavioral experiments with experienced managers in hypothetical scenarios. The results are very enlightening. And we did show that purchasing managers, they are very concerned about the potential of supplier ties in leaking proprietary information. And also we show that different types of supplier ties, they have very different impacts on the final supplier selection decision, depends on what ties we're talking about. Some of them are perceived to hurt both novelty and risk, while some of them may help with novelty, but does carry information leakage risks. And finally, we found that the ideal supplier profile is highly dependent on what the buying company wants to achieve from this innovation project. Ultimately, you do not just marry your partner, you marry your partner's family too.